Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Modern Craftsman Monday. This week, we are joined by special guest Mike Elayan from ECS Homes. He is a builder, renovator, contractor up in North Jersey. I've known Mike going on probably 8 years or so. He is currently fasting for Ramadan, so he's tuned down, which may be good for some of you guys. But typically, I have to act professional on this podcast. But generally, if you get Mike and myself together, it's a hoot. It is a lot of ball busting and witty remarks. I love Mike. I've always loved Mike. He's a good guy. I've toured his job sites, met him in person. He brought me to his personal home, my family in to meet his family. Um, does some really cool, unique builds. He's always pushing the limits of what he can do, and most impressively, it is with a very lean team. For many years, he worked alone by himself, building 4 custom homes at a time. He now has his brother, his younger brother, on staff full time, and another project manager, super Mike, also. But the three of them put out a ton of work, a lot of really high quality builds. If you don't know who he is, check out his social. Apparently, he's also on TikTok, which I'm not surprised at all. Mike is a character. I love Mike, and I really appreciate him filling in a spot in this podcast where we had a guest back out pretty last minute. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Enjoy Mike. Check him out. Check out his team. They do great work. And again, I love Mike. I couldn't speak more highly of him. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. They're introducing their new 100 series flush fin window this spring. This product allows for easy installation in stucco applications without the hassle of disturbing the stucco, saving time and money. With Andersen, contractors in the Southwest now have replacement solutions for any project. Their Fibrex material is the ultimate solution in Southwest climates. 2 times stronger than vinyl, with a finish 12 times thicker, Fibrex stands 150-degree temperatures. Even in dark colors, these windows won't fade, flake, blister, or peel. And now with the new flush fin product, upgrading old aluminum windows has never been easier. Every new product introduced by Andersen is developed with innovation, quality, and craftsmanship that has defined their brand for nearly 120 years. Learn about the differences by visiting andersenwindows.com, and that is ANDERSEN windows.com. This is something that we saw when we recently toured their factory a couple of weeks ago. Really cool product, seeing how they make their Fibrex, seeing the longevity and how they're testing paint colors and why this is a good choice for dark windows in climates like in the Southwest. Really impressive, really exciting visit with them. So check out their website. And as always, please try and patronize our partners. As always, I want to give a special shout out to Buildertrend for partnering with us on this podcast. If you guys have an opportunity, hop on their website, buildertrend.com, check them out, see what they offer. If you're a big company, small company, check them out. We really encourage you guys to patronize the businesses that support us and help us do what we're able to do, because without them, we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to put people in place, carve the time out. So we are fully devoted to these companies like Buildertrend, and we would appreciate if you patronized them as well. We all want a competitive edge, and that's exactly what you get with APB's State Residential Construction Industry Report. This is the industry's most comprehensive report, filled cover to cover with insights that give you a glimpse into how builders across the United States, Canada, and Australia are running their businesses. Get your copy for free today from our friends at Buildertrend at buildertrend.com/APB 2023. One of the key takeaways from the report's survey results: Buildertrend remains the market leader for construction software. Every builder needs a copy of this. Remember to get yours at buildertrend.com/APB 2023. All right, so news to you. Nick is not on today, so it's just lucky you. It's just the two of us.
I don't know if I'm honored or offended, but I'll let you know by the end of the show.
I mean, I feel like you got to be pretty pumped, right? Like
uh,
this, you got way more excited now that you
uh,
found that out.
my man. Why are you covering up your hair?
What, my hair? My hair looks
There we
good.
go. Yeah, I want to
Look at
see it.
that.
There we go.
It's long.
You're like my hair inspiration.
You think so?
I do.
I'll let you borrow some of it.
How you been, man? It's been a long time.
Good, busy, good. Life's crazy. Kids are getting old, trying to work less. I was thinking about the last time we podcast. I was going to listen to our podcast, but I don't want to ruin it because all I can recall is me playing the
Titanic.
Titanic song, and like that was the peak of my podcasting career, and I feel like nothing has lived up to that, and it's gone downhill from there.
It was a pretty good moment.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it was about, but I can just hear that song playing in my head. What you need to do is you need to pan the camera down so we can see the guns, the pythons.
Oh, they're BB guns now. I'm fasting for Ramadan, so it's 30 days without really eating. So,
Uh-oh.
yeah, losing
Wait,
weight
is
by the
is
day.
that is that just until, like, sundown?
Yeah, so basically from sun up to sunset. So essentially from around 5:30 a.m. till about 7:30 p.m. for about 30 days, and we're 3 days away from completion. So
Damn,
yeah.
I would be so hangry all the time, like, I woulda told me no about the podcast.
So you know what's funny is, and I guess you can kind of translate this to all aspects of life. It's all a mindset. On a regular day, I wake up. If I'm not eating my eggs and having my coffee by 7 a.m., I'm miserable. Right? As soon as you just flip the switch, you know you can't have it or you can't do something or you have to do something. It kind of just happens with ease. You just need to have a grasp of it, and it starts up here. So my 8-year-old, he does MMA fighting and he does it. So that's kind of testament to that fact.
That's intense. I remember a
Yeah.
few kids in school growing up fasting, and I was like, "I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you're gonna do this for the next month."
Discipline, baby.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's
Yeah.
true. Well, good for you.
Thanks.
Thanks for making the time.
My pleasure, man. Good to see you.
Um, I guess it was a while ago. It's probably a few years ago at this point that we had you on last. So we're a very professional outfit now. I'm just straight face, straight laced. I don't mess around. Um, I'm never inappropriate. I'm very professional. You guys don't know Mike and my relationship outside of social media, but it's typically just ball busting, mostly on my part.
Yeah.
But I do love you.
I love you too, bud.
So those who didn't hear the last podcast episode, um, maybe just a quick background as to what your company is, what you guys do.
Yeah, ECS Homes. We're a few individuals based out of New Jersey that specialize in building some really cool, creative houses. We like unique, complex homes. We deal with the same architectural and design team on a lot of our projects, so there's great synergy there and really connecting to modern families and what they're looking for. And bringing more California style houses to New Jersey is kind of really what our tagline is.
And you're North Jersey because there's a distinct delineation between North. Like I'm in the country, right?
I mean, where you are is kind of, I don't know if we can still classify that as New Jersey, but we'll let it go.
It's rural. It's basically
Yeah.
Delaware.
Yeah.
So so you're working in New York suburbs?
That is correct. So we're about 10 to 15 miles out of, from the GWB. And most of our stuff is in this region here. We do travel a little more than we used to for cool projects, but for the most part, it's northern New Jersey.
Mike, what about the people who don't know what GWB is?
George Washington Bridge. If you don't, you're living under
Ah,
a rock.
well,
You didn't
man, you
know.
not
See?
dude, I knew not everyone's North Jersey though. Not everyone listening to this podcast is North Jersey, you know? Not everyone lives north of Trenton. What about you getting into building? Like, what was I know that your parents owned a market, right?
Yeah.
That's what you did growing up initially, and then how did you transition into building?
Yeah, so my family was originally in the supermarket business and then they transitioned into the discount stores. I always had a passion for real estate and construction, but I didn't have any idea that that's what I would end up doing. It was actually kind of a sad string of events that took place that got us to where we are now. We got into a real estate investment in our early 20s with my brothers. and the person we partnered up with kind of took complete. Um, he conned us essentially out of everything, and we got stuck with a building that he was supposed to renovate, and we were supposed to be the investors on. And that's kind of where it all started. I got into it, and we had to finish what he started and kind of left us with. And I discovered a passion, and kind of just been harnessing in on that since that day. It's been about 15 years now.
So that initial project was not a high-end residential build?
No, it was actually a 6 unit building in Jersey City, which is close to the Holland Tunnel, other
The
side.
HT?
I was
The
going to say it,
HT?
but exactly. But yeah, and it was not really anything special at the time, although it might be now that that area is drastically changed. But it was just like really basic $150,000 apartments, which is not a lot of money for there, but I know it's a lot of money in other parts of the country. But we were renovating these apartments, and nothing about it was high end.
So then what was the next project from there?
Not many projects from there. We went
No?
years. Honestly, we spent years just trying to muster up anything. I mean, I'm more
So
on the
you
court.
basically dug yourself out of that and then took a quick break from real estate development?
So basically, yeah, that ended real estate development aspirations in, for that decade, I should say. And that was right around 2008, and when the, economy kind of just crashed. So that wasn't a great time to start your own construction business, especially as you're welcoming a child into the world. So it was a hard time in our lives. However, we kind of just stuck with it, and I feel like, almost what Muhammad Ali says. He doesn't start counting his sit-ups until it starts to hurt. We just didn't give up. Like, we felt the pain, we just kept pushing through, and eventually, those little tiny door repair jobs and miscellaneous things, they panned out into something much larger.
So when was your first like full build? How many years later?
I would say about 7 years after we started ECS. We started with little repairs, then went on to renovations, and then additions, and then from there we got a new construction. And that's when I realized what the future of ECS would look like in my mind, and that we had something to work towards. Because in the beginning, I couldn't say that I had a business plan or I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I loved homes, I wanted to build things, but I didn't really understand where my part in this industry would be, and then we kind of discovered our niche with that project.
Okay, so I only know you as building homes, and I do want to get into your initial business model, and you were very lean, but prior to that, when you're doing this repair work, I mean this with no disrespect, but you do not look like the type that had tools in their hands during the repair stages of this company. So what did that work setup look like? Were you just subbing those jobs out and taking the leads? Was your brother working for you at that point? Your brother looks like he could swing a hammer better.
Yeah, well, he definitely could, and especially at me when I anger him. Um, Listen, I think that my biggest skill set and most people's biggest skill set is understanding what they are good at and what they aren't. For me, I was always a businessman. I loved coordination, management, putting the teams together, seeing a vision through to fruition. So even at the beginning stages, I knew that. Like you said, I'm not a very hands-on guy when it comes to actually, in field, on site doing work and things like that. So I had a couple of employees that I hired at the time that I was essentially absorbing knowledge from them while bringing them to these smaller scale projects. They were getting paid, and I was getting a free education. And that's how I looked at it for the first few years. So that's kind of, the early stages of this path. And then it just, with knowledge, I spent a lot of time reading, going to job sites. I probably shouldn't have, just like walking around, looking at things, asking questions. But 15 years ago, no one was opening their books or their chest to kind of
Yeah.
tell you any secrets. You really had to figure it out on your own. Now on Instagram, you can send, I get messages, you do all the time, I'm sure. People ask you, hey, how did you do this? And I respond, and I'm sure you do too, as much as we can within reason. But that didn't exist, so we had to do it the hard way.
Yeah, we were just having that conversation. Nick and Doug and myself were out at Andersen visiting, and a bunch of people are asking us, "How did you guys hook up? How do you connect?" And you forget that 10 years ago there wasn't this open network of people willing to share what they know and what they learn, especially locally. And that's why Nick and I connected so strongly, because We're roughly around the same age, looking to do a higher caliber of work. Obviously, our business models are much different, but there was not anybody around me locally that was like that.
Mhm.
And I completely forgot about that. It seemed what we have now and the community we have now and social and everybody putting out as much content as possible and sharing as much knowledge, it was not like that 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I remember about 4 years ago, I reached out to Brad AFT, who's also a good friend of all of ours,
Yeah.
and I was like, Brad, I have some questions about operations. Like, come up. So we went there. Me and Mike we went there for the weekend. We had lunch with the team. We went to a bunch of projects, and it was refreshing to see a different way to do things. And also, it was reassuring in some ways because the same problems you deal with, they're dealing with, and we're all just kind of figuring it out collectively. And it was just great to experience that. So the community is great at giving you the ability to kind of get an inside look where you typically wouldn't have had that 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, and Brad does a great job with that, with his business and being transparent, and it is reassuring to know that everyone has bad customers, everyone has bad days, and it's not as perfect as it may appear online. Um, so were you just selling jobs at this point when you had these employees? Were you just out there looking to land projects yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I was a runner. And what I mean by that is, at that time we weren't very sophisticated. There wasn't really like detailed material lists and takeoffs. So, let's just say we got a driveway repair job or, repairing a few interior doors. I'd show up, I'd have a van, the guys would have some tools, and they'd be like, all right, well, we need shims and we need this. And I'd go to Home Depot and I'd get back and be like, oh, well, we also need some insulation cans. And I'd go back and I would essentially just kind of be bouncing back and forth, not having any type of formal education, experience, or ever been to expose anything construction related. So it was a very challenging initial phase for me to go through that. And I think back now, and most people would have quit. I mean, I wanted to quit, and I don't quit at anything, but I
Yeah.
but I got close because it was really challenging to the point where I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And anyone who knows me like yourself, I'm a very optimistic guy. I mean, I see good in every situation, bad or not. So it was certainly hard.
So when you were doing these jobs, I know that you said you didn't have a plan in place, but were you looking to do larger jobs? Like when you were going out there trying to find work, were you always looking to do bigger jobs? And did you have in the back of your mind that you wanted to be building at some point, or were you just scraping and getting by and basically taking what landed on your lap?
Well, my vision was always to do larger projects. I didn't know how or what kind of projects, but at the time, I had a gun to my head to feed my family, right? And I was making no money. So I was just really worrying about now while in my downtime researching and reading and understanding the construction industry and how to be successful in it. And early on, I realized that my skill set would be and my ability to do things differently than other people were doing at the time, and to be a great team leader. And those are qualities that I felt that I had previously. So I knew that I would be able to harness them once I understood the real deep depth of construction, the ins and the outs. That was the part that I was missing.
Yeah. So when we first met, after one of the Kukin Brothers events, I believe it was Nick, John, and myself came and walked a few of your job sites. You were still relatively new at building at that point, but you were very lean. I think at that point you were still running everything by yourself and had a lot on your plate and were very overwhelmed. You're not that lean anymore, but you're still a pretty lean company. So how many people are working for you now?
We're a total of 3 people. And my business model has kind of shifted over the years. Initially, it was I was going to do as much as possible to build this business to stay lean. And then at one point, you start to grow. And in order to grow, you need great people around you. And we're lucky to be, accompanied by great people, which allowed us to take on cooler projects, more complex projects. Uh, I don't have an aspiration, as I may have at one point in my life, to have 50, people working with us and doing 40 houses a year. I like being a boutique firm. I think that it's good enough for us in the sense that we can pick and choose what projects we want to be a part of. I just turned 40 not too long ago. I have
Look good.
Thanks, pal. My oldest son is 2 years from college. My daughter's 3 years from college. So, I think life is kind of just transitioned as I mature a little bit more. I care less about all the stuff that everyone usually cares about, like material and money. And I really just care about building a cool team, building cool houses, and wherever that path takes me, we're willing to go. But we're always overwhelmed as builders. I mean, there's not a lie that you could have 100 employees. It just means you're overwhelmed because you have to deal with 100 different people, right? So
Yeah.
no matter what position you're in or what stage of growth, you're going to be overwhelmed in certain moments. But there's tolerances, right? So I know what my tolerance level is, and so does my team, and we try to stay within those.
So it's is Will still working for you?
Yeah, so me, Will, and Mike A. Will does a lot of the renovations, and then Mike A. and myself, and he does some of the new as well. But Mike A. and I will take on the super complex houses that we kind of tag team together, and that just everyone has a different level of where they want to be. So like in the beginning, I didn't really want the super complex stuff, and now it's like I thrive for it. It's what I want. The
Why? Like, it can't just be money, right? So what makes you want those complex jobs?
You make less money on them because you spend more time trying to get it perfect. That's what I
Yeah.
realize now. The number might be bigger, but in the end, your hours are, you're better off doing the 4,000 square foot basic houses if you're just looking at money, which you're
Yeah,
not.
I think at the end of the day, they generally are. You can create systems that make your workflow more efficient, and you're not striving for perfection. So it takes less time, it's less headache, and you can find subs that are more commonplace than, hey, I need every single sub on this job has to be top notch. There's just less room for error there.
Yes, and I feel like when you get to a certain level, I mean, it's almost like resistance training in a gym. You don't want to go to the gym and start pushing weight that you don't even feel anything. You're not getting sore, you're not getting a burn. And it's the same thing. My mind, Mike's mind, Will's mind, all of us, we want to feel challenged. If we're not feeling like we're getting a challenging, task, it's just almost like we're not applying ourselves, we're not bettering ourselves. And at the end of the day, if you're not, then what are you doing? Right. So I think that in business, a lot of times, depending on your situation, you start with money as your goal. And then you transition, and then you start to realize that there's a lot more value in other aspects of life and in your work than money. People sometimes say, "Oh, you guys are the best," and I say, "Oh, we never wanted to be the best. That's not our goal. Our goal has always been to master our craft.
Yeah.
But if you master your craft, inevitably you'll show up as the best one day. And it's just the process."
Yeah, and I mean that's important to note there too that your goals may have shifted and you may have evolved, but you're continuing to strive to better yourself. And I think with business, a lot of times, like you said, people get so focused on how do I make more money? How do I make more money? And they take on more work, and it may not be the right work. Where the right choice may be to scale back and play to your strong suits and find the jobs where you really can knock it out of the park and build your experience, build your portfolio, and continue down that path rather than in our business. Like so many people just think it's volume that's going to grow us, where there's got to be a balance there. And I mean, obviously, I'm very lean. I'm of the mindset where less is more. Um, and I want the jobs that people don't want to be doing that may or may not be more profitable, but people want me to be doing those jobs, which is very similar to what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's another side to both of where we, both stand, where people do things out of desperation. And I was there, so I understand it. I kind of went full circle in the sense that I've tasted every part of this, where I didn't care what it was in the beginning. I was taking it because I had to. I had kids to feed. I didn't, you know. So, you know, I feel like as long as you're constantly evolving and that's not what you're settling for, it's acceptable, right? So there are some moments where, let's say when COVID hit, some people did incredible, others did terrible. And the people that had nothing were taking on jobs that they typically wouldn't. And I feel like, that's strength to do something that you don't really want to do because you have to. But as long as you're doing it like you want to do it, right? That's the key.
So when you initially had this vision of building a bigger company, like you said earlier, I don't know, 40, 50 people, what was the intrigue there for you? Was it ego driven? Was that just what you saw as the most profitable, lucrative end goal? Why did you want such a big company?
So we're going deep now. I feel like I've gone through a real self discovery phase in the last 3 to 5 years, like the last 3 years. Um, I think it's very easy to get consumed by everything around you. You're building these $5 million, $10 million gorgeous houses. You're seeing these Ferraris and these Lamborghinis and all this amazing stuff everywhere. uh, it's appealing to certain personalities, right? And then you say, well, I want that. I could have that, and I could do that. And now, in order to do all that, you have to take on all this extra stuff, which is great if that's what you truly want and that's what makes you happy. But then I realized that, you know what? I don't need to build something for the sake of getting something. I want to do what makes me happy. Making me happy is building really cool homes with my team. If we end up organically growing to 50 employees, then so be it. Although that isn't necessarily my aspirations anymore, it's certainly feasible. But at least now I feel like we have the right foundation. Our mindset is kind of where it needs to be. Not to say that my team always shared my mindset. I don't think they did. But I've kind of gone through it all. I experienced life from many different angles, and I realized that in time, what an asset. Like I have a hard time believing that I'm 40 years old because I feel like I'm 20,
Yeah.
and 40 is not old, but I still am like, holy cow, where did I mean, like, for the most part, half my life or more is gone. And I'm like thinking kind of differently than I used to. So I want to build an amazing company. I feel like we have an amazing company, and some of the content that we're getting ready to put out and have been putting out, in my opinion, some of the most beautiful houses New Jersey's ever seen. And there's even more coming. So we're definitely trending in the direction that we're all looking to go in.
So did you when you had this self-realization, obviously you have a small team, your brother Will's on staff, Mike's been with you for a long time. Did you sit down and have a conversation with them as to where you were, where you currently are, and where you think that you're heading, and gauge their interest in all of this?
We never had these. I mean, I talked to Mike specifically maybe 17 times a day. I mean, me and Mike, we were kind of ping ponging all day, right? So Mike knows, I think, pretty much exactly how I think, and I know exactly how he thinks. And me and my brother Will, obviously, we're 11 months apart. We've been around each other forever. We also have that in common. Um, we felt a transition. We saw a transition, and I think that these projects and the direction that we're going in, it did organically come to a certain extent when we were ready for it. And I feel like that's a really important factor because early on when I started, I did want those big projects. I'd throw my hands up and say, God, send me something.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for it.
No.
And it was a blessing. Sometimes, see, it's a blessing what you get and a blessing what you don't get. And I realize now in retrospect that everything happened in perfect sequence. I got what we needed when we were ready. And each phase of our lives, I feel, is kind of consistent with that mindset.
It's really difficult to get a job that you aren't set up for. And so many people strive for the bigger jobs and they want to be going from doing renovations to additions to building homes to building luxury homes. But if you don't have the business where you can either pay people a high rate, a high dollar rate or salary who have the experience with doing that, or you haven't organically built that experience and knowledge yourself, you may get there, but it's going to be a much harder path and journey throughout that. And you may pull your head above water. I'm not meaning to single out Nick here, but Nick has put everything in place to build what he's wanted to build. He's manifested everything with his business, but it's been really difficult because the timeline that Nick's on is somebody's entire career. And he's like 10 years into it, building shit that people only dream of building. And it's been really difficult. And he's powered through everything to make that happen. But these lessons would be far less impactful and less burdensome on him had he naturally taken this path. And that's just not who Nick is, and that's not what Nick wants. Nick wants it now, and he wants to build the best shit in the world now, and he's going to find a way to make that happen. But that doesn't mean that that's the easy way. Nick could have taken 20 years to get where he is now. Instead, he wanted to put that on fast forward. And I've seen him struggle through that and continue to power through that and evolve. But a lot of the jobs that he gets, like, he wasn't ready for at that point, and he made good on them. And he came out with a ton of lessons and has survived. But it's been a struggle for him to be that successful that early.
Do you know why he made it on each one of those jobs, the ones that he wasn't technically, you saying, prepared for at the moment? It's because it's a personality trait. See, that's the one thing that I feel like we all share in common is we sell ourselves because we believe we can produce. I know, see, the one thing is I know what I could do and what I can't do. About 10 years ago, I almost left construction. My ex-wife, she comes to me, she's like, hey, Mike, this is not working. You need to do something else. And I went and I tried selling furniture on the weekends, right? My cousin's like, I'm making a fortune selling furniture. So I go there and he's selling, he's like bunk beds. He's saying, oh, my kids love these bunk beds. And he sold it. And then the lady left. And I was like, hey, man, you don't have kids. He's like, so who cares? They don't know that. So I couldn't sell anything because I didn't believe in the product. And it goes back to when you absolutely breathe, live what you're doing, you're passionate about it, and you're willing to put the work behind it, failing is not an option. So he may have challenged the waves by going against them and doing it faster than it would have happened if it was more organic. But he did it because the personality trait was there. That doesn't happen for everybody. A lot of people, they'll just throw their hands up and say, you know what, I'm just going to take a walk with what I have, and that's a problem. So if you're built for this and you can take that kind of mental pain and struggle, then you can make it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to walk away, and a lot of people are going to just say, "Hey, you know what? This is what you paid for. This is what you're going to get, and that's it. I'm not giving you any more." And I think that personalities like ourselves or like Nick's, we just don't accept that. We made a promise to somebody, and we have a certain level of execution and quality that we want to deliver on, and we won't walk away without doing that, even if it is a financial, mental, physical burden on us, which is good and bad. I think long term, that's a really good trait to have, but it's a struggle and it's difficult, and the growing pains, you really feel them, especially when you are that small. Because I think that as somebody who's that hands on with the business, a lot of times you give away your time for free.
Yeah, I mean, my dad taught me early on that your character, your reputation, it takes a lifetime to build and a moment to knock down, right? So we all spend all these years building our brand, building our company, our knowledge, our teams, and to take something on that's going to put you in a compromising position where someone's going to be like, he didn't do the right job. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. He left. He didn't finish. None of us would allow that, right?
Yeah.
So Mike and I talk about this all the time. He's like, Mike, that's not your problem to pay for $2,000. I said, but Mike, listen, and he understands. But in the beginning, it's like it just doesn't make sense. It's a sense of checks and balances. He's like, I don't get it. Why are you spending $5,000 out of your own pocket on something you don't have to? Because you know what, Mike, making them happy is essentially planting a seed to another client, to another client, to another client. And at the end of the day, we take a vow, just like a marriage. We come into this relationship, and I always tell everyone, like, this is a roller coaster. Building a house, you're so emotional. Every single thing is going to play at the strings of your heart, but we're going to hold your hands on that roller coaster and we're going to guide you through. So, to go that extra mile to make sure your clients are happy, are content, are satisfied in every way, I mean, that's what'll separate you from 99% of everyone else who's doing this.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to find and work for the customers that you trust and that you believe in and the projects you believe in. Because like your dad said, you could be in business 10, 15, 20 years and everything can be on the up and up, and then you take a job that you know you shouldn't, and that's the customer that tarnishes your reputation or brings you down. Um, about so when you first started, and I want to put this back a few years when I met you, and you were essentially building houses, managing the builds, doing everything yourself. What did that setup look like for you? Were you handling bringing the customers to the architect, managing all the subs, doing all the accounting, everything was on your plate?
Every aspect.
And how many projects were you doing at once?
At the most, at any single moment, I had about 4 new construction homes ranging from 5,000 to 12,000 square feet.
And are you fine with getting into how you were set up as far as managing and charging for these jobs at that point?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it wasn't a very sophisticated system, but I knew in order to penetrate the luxury market at the point where we didn't have a reputation and a brand, I needed to be competitive, more competitive than those people. And, I know there's differing opinions, and you might even have a differing opinion, but I definitely went in there grossly undervaluing the service.
Yeah.
But for me, it was an investment, right? I said, okay, I left 50,000 on 70,000 on the line, whatever it is. For me, that's like free advertising, because in order for me to have my sign on this house in this neighborhood to get these $3-4 million projects, I'll take a hit on the first 3 or 4 or 5. So I was charging. I don't even remember what the percentage was. You have to check the podcast at the time, but the other podcast we did. But it was a flat fee. So let's just say it was $1 million budget, and we had a flat fee, and it went to $2 million. I mean, I was getting slammed, right?
Yeah.
I was too naive to think that a project could go from $1 million to $2 million, and it happens, and not on the accord of any type of mismanagement of numbers, but clients can drastically increase scope. I was too new to understand that 10 years ago, right? So obviously we've changed now where we still feel like we're competitive, but it's also a little bit more fair where we can't get destroyed.
If I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially you were figuring out how long a job was going to last. You had your management fee and you were taking draws every so often to cover your time going into that, but all job costs were essentially fully transparent, fully passed on to your customers so that you were making money on your management and nothing else, right?
That is correct. I mean, we're still wired that way, right? So there's very few differences in where we were before and where we are now, except for the fact that if we have a $2 million budget and then we spend another $500,000 because there's upgrades everywhere on actual, not upgrades on like cabinets. If the cabinet is 50
Yeah.
and they spend 70, that's no extra management. But if we're adding 100 recessed lights and finishing a basement, we're going to get compensated fairly, just like we would on the project in general. We still get our monthly payments, and our clients still pay everything directly. As a matter of fact, one of the key reasons to our success and our growth, somewhat similar to Nick, because realistically, we probably would have had 5 more years to go to get to where we are now. People love the financial structure. The stigma behind honest builders and contractors, I don't know if it's only in New Jersey or everywhere, but in New Jersey specifically, it was like, good luck finding a good mechanic or a good contractor. They're all crooks. That's what everyone would always say. So here I came up with a foolproof system, and I didn't invent it, but I modified it to make it work for me at the time, where the clients were controlling every aspect of their budget, and they knew exactly what we were getting. And early on, we worked for a lot of law enforcement, and they didn't really have that level of trust right away. You had to earn it.
Yeah.
So, oh, my uncle's a electrician. He's going to beat your guy up, no problem. He'll get the bid, and we'll look. And apples to apples, once I reconcile, they're the same. Like, all right, just use your guy; it'll be easier. And then people got that level of confidence. Now I won't really do that. Obviously, like you said, you can't violate protocol anymore. Like if you're geared towards a certain thing, you have a certain rhythm with your crew. I'm not going to bring in a new HVAC guy
You
because my
can't.
client could save $3,000 and I'm going to chase him for 4 months. I'm not doing it. But if you have your own audio video guy and that's a personal thing, I'll allow that. Things like that. But overall, there is no modifications. And also, I mean, we used to do bathrooms and kitchen renovations and stuff like that. But now I'm not geared towards that. So if someone called me, I can't do that because we are really just new houses, major additions, and full home renovations. That's kind of where we are. And it's plug and play for us. Even though the projects are complex, we have a system to deal with those complexities, right? And it's easier for me to build a new house than it is to manage 2 bathroom renovations.
Yeah. And those bathrooms would be exorbitantly expensive.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Are you doing about the same amount of work from a volume perspective, not necessarily numbers, but a volume perspective as when you were working alone?
No, we're doing more.
You're doing more.
Yeah,
As far as the intricacy of the builds or just the number of builds that you're doing?
both. Yeah. Intricacy is 100% greater than where it used to be.
Yeah.
And we weren't doing watered down stuff. I mean, you've seen our stuff even 7, 8 years ago. It was still, a lot of detail going into the houses, but the detail that's happening now is more uncommon for our market. It's something you find in 10, 15, $20 million houses in Cali and other parts, maybe Miami. But like that slide house, for instance, that we just did. There aren't a lot of houses in New Jersey with slides or anywhere in the nation. There's a handful of them, right? So we figured out how to economically create a slide in a house that goes from every floor, down to the one below. Those types of features, there's no book to kind of teach you how to do it.
No.
Client says, "Hey, dude, I want a slide," and we say, "Okay, let's figure it out." We sit down with the team, we put a pen and paper, and we come up with ideas. And I feel like what's great about us is we're sensitive to your dollars, like to your pockets, because we started from nothing and we earned every aspect of what we have. So we are sympathetic to our clients. We didn't, this is no dig at anyone. I said this once and it cost me a job. I said this to a client I was interviewing with, and I thought it was a good angle. I said, listen, we didn't inherit this business from our fathers. We fought for this, and we put our, and what I meant by that is, like, I don't just have a Rolodex of all these subcontractors from 20 years ago that charge top dollar, and we're not thinking about it from an innovative perspective. But his father started a business that he happened to
Yeah, that's
inherit
not
and take
good.
over, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that, so he didn't hire me for that reason. But I'm not
Wait,
shy to.
when did you find out that his dad
About
owned it?
a year and a half later, they didn't tell me right away.
Oh,
So
that's amazing. It would
yeah,
have been so I feel like it would have been better if he was just like, as a matter of fact,
you're fired, and
see
here's
ya.
why. But
How
it's
how
okay.
did you find out?
I heard through the grapevines that he said that. So, but you know what? Everything's a blessing. I always look at it now. In the beginning, I used to be sad when I didn't get a job. The jobs you get are a blessing, and the jobs you don't get are a blessing, right?
Yeah.
Because, like marriage, not every personality is meant to work together. And every once in a while, you'll get a customer that you're like, they probably aren't perfectly aligned. But you do what you have to do. The customer that we just finished this beautiful 12,000 square foot house for on the Alpine border in New Jersey, an exquisite home. I mean, I've had a lot of famous musicians come tour that. I mean, anyone who saw it that knew us asked to come tour the house.
Yeah.
And I saw that client over the course of the 24 months it took from, beginning to end, maybe 15 times up until the last 2 months where they had to be there more often. And it was the most successful project we've ever had to date in every aspect because of how trusting they were of the team that they hired.
That makes such a big difference on both behalves. And it's always the saying, you're going to get the house that you deserve. And if you are a good, fair customer and appreciative customer, you're going to get a better job than a customer who's just an asshole or essentially treating you as though you are hired help and they brought you on to fulfill a service and a contract for them. One hand washes the other. And I do believe that really good customers get the best project.
Yeah. There's no question about everything you just said as being 100% accurate. And I know that now more than ever because I've had enough projects on both sides of the coin to see that the subcontractors even perform at a higher caliber for the people they find respectful. And you might say, oh, well, that's not fair. They're getting paid the same amount from both people. But at the end of the day, the environment is everything. There's
Yeah.
enough work for people to go work anywhere and not have to deal with things that they don't want to. So trust is a very important part of this. And I also wanted to talk about one other thing that we kind of briefly did speak about at one point. In my opinion, the best time to bring your builder in is while you're working with your architect.
Yeah.
Because so many times we're seeing our clients come to us with these amazing plans, and then they find out they're 6, 7 figures over budget. And that's just because they not have the guidance that they need from the onset. So, that's kind of something that we're pushing more now. We don't really want to get a lot of just random bids. We're not interested in that. We want to work from the design phase with the architectural firm and yourself and kind of develop this, keeping an eye on the budget, guiding you, and locking in our position so that we can invest all this quote unquote free time early on to make sure that the project finishes off at the right film.
So as far as the contractor, designer, and client relationship that is on the docket to talk about, you're now running this conversation, so we're gonna go there. Um, uh, I do have some things I want to go back to, but let's dig into this some. Why do you feel, and we can go high level or dig into this more deeply, but why is it so important to have a strong builder architect relationship?
I've seen a lot of failed projects because there's no synergy in the team. You have to be able to have a relationship with an architect and design team where you can comfortably call, ask questions, and both of you explain different angles, and also have an architect that understands, all right, this is his vision with the insight of the client. But if the client's budget is going to prohibit certain aspects of his vision, we need to all be somewhat realistic and come up with ways to value engineer to still keep the design intent, but maybe make some modifications without reducing quality. And if you don't have the ability to have these casual conversations without worrying about hurting someone's feelings or upsetting somebody, that's a problem.
So at what point, and I know you just briefly got into this, but at what point are you there's two different angles that we can look at this, right? There's going to be the customer who's calling you who wants to work with you, then you're feeding them to the architect, or the customer that's going to the architect and then they're bringing you on board. Let's look at it from the perspective where somebody calls you and leaves you a voicemail and says, "Hey, we want to build a home. Can you find us a lot?" Whatever that conversation may look like. Can you give me a quick rundown of how you're going to approach that phone call up to working with the architect and what that looks like on your end?
Yeah, I'm going to use a live example. The house I just told you we finished with the slide, that originated. I remember where I was. I got a phone call, said, "Hey, we saw you guys on Instagram. We just bought a lot. We want to build a house. We're interested in meeting with you." I understood the date, the time, didn't know much other than a ballpark size. I said, "No problem. I'll call the architect. I'll see when he's available. We'll come by and we'll review it with you." I called my buddy Dan. We set up the meeting. We went to the site. Um, we had a great meeting where we just kind of just spitballed some ideas. It was a 25-foot slope from one side of the property to the next. So we had to be very creative. Just on site, coming up, both of us with some good ideas that the client seemed to take to. They immediately said, to themselves, and they told us later that, what, we like this team, this kind of like younger mindset and understanding how younger families live. And they chose us over the people that were building in that town for 30 years, whose fathers started the company and they built all the mansions there. Uh, and then design started. So we sat down and we said, "Hey, guys, what do you want to spend?" And that's a hard question to ask because,
Yeah.
but you want to kind of understand and ascertain who's got somewhat realistic expectations, right? So you don't waste too much time going to this super unique house that they don't have the budget or want to spend the money on. So
So,
one, yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you. They met with the other builders as well. It wasn't just like, "Hey, we met with Mike and Dan, and that was it." They met with the other builders.
I believe they had met with the other builders before us.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how I understood the story after the fact.
And they specifically told you that they liked the team approach and you guys both showing up and just putting ideas out in front of them, that's the reason that they decided to go with you.
Correct. And to be quite honest with you, the majority of our clients who hire us say it's an ease of communication. They just feel comfortable. And that's the
Yeah,
most
and
important part of this.
it's one thing that I do want to note to everyone. I know that Nick and I talk about it a lot, and when you get into doing a higher caliber of work, and everyone is essentially wanting to get paid for every single hour that they work, like, Mike, you're not paid at this point for this meeting. So you're taking time out of your schedule, out of Dan's schedule to go and meet this potential customer for a build that's not your build at this point. So just to note that there's still aspects of all of our jobs that we are doing out of good faith and to land projects regardless of where you are in that construction sector or construction market. There's still sweat equity that you have to put into this. And at this point in the conversation, Mike doesn't have a check in hand, Dan doesn't have a check in hand. This job is not theirs, but he's still going to meet with this customer to look to sell this work.
Correct.
All right,
Yep.
proceed.
We got the contract signed and it was over.
Um So you met with this customer, they were a good fit for you.
Yeah.
They liked you and Dan together, and I think we should touch on your and Dan's relationship because obviously that's a very unique relationship that you guys have aside from just working together professionally.
Yeah, Dan is owner of Plan Architecture and Plan Interiors, one of my best friends in the world. So we met at a very interesting part of both of our careers. I'd say about 12 years ago now. He had just transitioned or was starting to transition from working for a firm to starting his own in the basement of his house. And I got a call from my friends that their neighbor was going to renovate and they wanted to recommend me. Dan happened to be the architect on a really small addition for them. And that's kind of how we connected. Job didn't pan out. I didn't do it, but we kind of had synergy. We kept in touch and then we developed a friendship. And then we essentially built our businesses in parallel. And I most of the more notable projects that either one of us has done is been together, and that's because people appreciate us as a team. So most of the time, if someone follows ECS Homes, they follow Plan Architecture, and if they hire for these types of unique homes, Plan Architecture, they hire ECS, or vice versa. Not every client goes to an architect first. We sign a lot of our contracts before they even have an architect,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of that has to do with the branding and the marketing, through social media and other avenues where people are kind of vetting you before they've ever interviewed you to say, hey, you know what? I like what this guy's doing. Him and his team, they have a right mindset. I appreciate their projects and the style. Let's hire them. And then once they have that type of trust in you, they're going to trust you to guide them to the best possible sources for architectural and design.
Yeah, and you guys are working together enough and marketing yourselves together enough that people understand it's a package deal. And if you want this level of execution and you want this job to be this way, that you're going to come to them and you're going to have them handle design and construction together. Were you using architects prior to this renovation that you were looking at with Dan?
I was not. So at that
No.
point, I was still doing very basic stuff.
Yeah. So did you? What did that looking at that job and seeing those plans, did that set off a light bulb in your head where it's like, "Hey, this is what I should be doing moving forward with customers or potential builds, like, I should be having design in place." Um, was that somewhat of an eye opener for you when you first made that connection with Dan?
I wouldn't say there was a light bulb moment, but I remember distinctly our first project together. I got a call from a designer in an area, and she said, I have a customer that's looking to do an addition. Are you interested? I said, absolutely. At that point, they asked me after meeting them, they're like, we want to work with you. Do you have an architect? So I never worked with Dan before, but I said, yeah, actually, I do. So I introduced Dan. He got the job. We did it. It came out fantastic. It was a kitchen addition in the town of Demorest, New Jersey. And that was the one of a bunch. And then he also, obviously, his name spreads and he works with other builders and other contractors alike, right? So for a builder, I think it's a little bit different than an architect. An architect needs to service a lot of people, right? You can't just align with, just doing the projects we do. It wouldn't be enough to sustain his staff and stuff. So he has a great database of people that he works with. But anytime we get, someone that doesn't have an architect and a builder, uh, I always try to package it up because I already know that they're going to get the best possible product. When day one, Dan and myself are both signed up, and we can kind of work towards a common goal of understanding their dream life and dream home and designing it and building it.
It's interesting to see, and I'm thinking of this as far as the listener's perspective. to try and enlighten them on how you fostered this relationship with Dan, where people are going to say, "Well, how do I reach out to an architect? How do I get involved with an architect?" And oftentimes you're thinking of the situation where you have an established builder and you have an established architect, and now you need to adapt and evolve into each other's systems, right? So you need to meet with an architect and say, "Hey, this is how I work. How do you work? If I have a job that comes across my plate, how do you want me to integrate you? At what point do you want me to integrate you?" It sounds like Dan was so early on in his independent career at this point, and you were too, that you guys somewhat um evolved both of your businesses to fit each other.
That's 100% accurate. While we built different practices, they were done on the same principles. And all of the early projects that helped establish both of us as being, ambassadors in the construction industry in New Jersey were done together. And all of the more recent, really just eye-catching, incredible projects that challenge standard architecture in New Jersey were done together. So we were fortunate to become friends very early on and evolve our business relationship. Dan and I were just less than a year apart. We share the same mindset. Neither one of us does this for the money. We have to make money to live, right? It'd be crazy to not admit that. But we really do this out of passion. I mean, he'll sit there and he'll look at something and we'll be out to dinner and he'll just get a napkin and be like, "What do you think of this?" And I love it, right? Because that's the kind of passion I want around me. And then we'll sit down and we'll talk and we'll design things like, I'm sitting in a house right now that me and Dan were flipping, and we designed and built this thing in less than 5 months, just me and him. Our architects are like, we made decisions, one, two, three, we did it. I ended up moving into it. I was like, yeah, I kind of like it. It's nice. So, but that's what you get. You get that value of efficiency when you have people who truly understand each other and have the same mindset. Now, back to your other question, I contacted early on in my career architects, a lot of architects,
Yeah.
and I never got a call back. So I realized that to penetrate an established architect when you're not established, and even so when you are established, is not very easy unless you came by the way of a client referral or perhaps a realtor referral. So where I went to focus early on after understanding that was realtors. I said, how can add value to you? This is who I am. This is what my company is. Here's our handles on social media. Why don't you allow me to walk through with serious clients on houses that need renovations? I'll talk to them about the approximate cost, give them ideas, help you try to close the sale, and get myself early footing into a job. And I did find that helped.
That was successful for you.
That was successful at the time, yes.
Um, Obviously still not new builds, but doing larger scale renovations.
Correct.
Um, Even at that point, right, where you have a larger scale renovation and you're looking to bring in an architect. For me, that's the point where you can nail an architect, where you could say, "Hey, for me, I could bring an architect to a project, bring them to something that's underway where they can see how we work, and then bring them to something that's finished where they can meet with the customer." Because I think a lack of calling people back, one, it could be that they're just busy, or two, they have this network of contractors where their risk is limited. Because as an architect, when you refer a contractor, you don't know what you're getting. So you want to ensure that you're protecting your business and your reputation at that point. So in order to hook up with these architects, you have to, it's the whole trust thing that we talked about before. And if they understand who you are, how you work, how you communicate with your customers, with your subs, and then they can see that project at completion, even if they're not involved with the design of that project. I think coming to an architect with that and say, "Hey, you saw how we work. Now I have potential jobs that are coming across my plate. Are you interested in this?" You're going to be more successful fostering those relationships than just cold calling architects and being like, "Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Let me know when something comes across your plate."
Yeah.
Because it's establishing that trust and that relationship. And it's not going, it's just like if you want somebody who's going to be your friend, you can't just reach out to a bunch of people and be like, "Hey, if you need a friend, I'm here." You have to actually do something. You have to prove yourself. It's not just one phone call. Now you have somebody who's going to pick up the phone anytime that you need help.
So we recently finished a project. A client had hired an architect, hired another builder, and then while cutting the trees down, they didn't even get past that phase. They ended up firing him. Realized it wasn't a good fit. Then he hired us. So we built that house. I don't think I called the architect once. It was a pretty simple house. There was really nothing that I needed his opinion on. Um, we did some really cool things, secret rooms and things like that, which we like to incorporate in our builds. He toured it on the last day. I never met him. I actually wasn't even there when he toured. I didn't know he was coming. He called me up after. He said, "I just want to tell you guys did a really fantastic job, and I'd love to consider you for future projects if my clients don't already have a contract." So it kind of came right back to the beginning of where I was trying to establish relationships. And I realized that, just obviously you need to start with an opportunity somewhere, right? It has to present itself and you have to work for it. But when it comes, do the right thing and more opportunities will follow.
Yeah, and it just takes time. It's not one of those things. I mean, you can force it, but it's going to take time. You're going to have the right job. You're going to have to ensure that you've instilled that level of confidence or trust in your business. It's the same as using a new sub. If you have a sub who calls you up and you already have a good group of subs, maybe you don't call them back. But the sub that calls you up and say, "Hey, I want you to come out and look at this project that we're doing. Come look at my own house that I did to see the type of work that we do." And then if something comes across your plate that you think I'm a good fit for, but it's not just a simple phone call and then we're done. As far as your relationship with Dan goes, you guys are good friends. You are two very different people. You guys were neighbors at one point. Did you build his house, or you built so you
Yeah.
built his house and you built the house right next to it?
I built my house, well, what was formerly my house and his house, correct. Yeah. So that way that happened was interesting because I called him. I said, "Hey, Danny, I found a piece of property. I think I want to buy it and build a house." So he goes, "All right, I'll take a look." He comes up and he goes, "What about that one?" I said, "That's for sale too." He goes, "I think I want to buy that one." So we ended up just kind of buying the two properties. He suckered me into taking the one that he didn't want, but I ended up liking it more. So we both kind of won. And in the end, we built these really, I mean, the most incredible houses in the town, in my opinion. Um, and it was really awesome for the 4 or 5 years that we lived next to each other, except for his poor taste in music that he blasts every Sunday.
Yeah, seriously.
It would align with your taste, though. I'm not
It's
going
the
to lie.
no,
Yeah.
that's like hardcore Italian. Probably smoking cigars out back.
When the moon hits your eyes.
Just eating mozzarella cheese and drinking wine,
Well,
smoking
he's a
cigars.
good cook. He's a good
Is
cook,
he?
though. I will say he's a good cook.
He's gonna have to invite me up. I'll
Yeah,
stop on my way up to the lake.
yeah.
What do you attribute the success of that relationship to and you guys becoming so close?
I was thinking about this not too long ago because I like to self-analyze, and I
It's
said,
fun, isn't it?
"It is." Well, I feel like you can, hold yourself accountable, and then you can also be proud of the things that you did right and learn from the things you did wrong. But Dan and I have an absolutely two-way relationship. There's no taker in this relationship, right? There were moments where I felt like I would put him on my shoulders if I had to, and there were moments where he would put me on his shoulders if he had to. And that started because the mutual respect we had early on in our friendship. Um, and you don't find two people that are both selfless, and they kind of just adapt to one another. Sometimes we'll push and sometimes I'll pull and vice versa. And we kind of just feed off of each other's energy. Um, and that's, I think, honestly, the number one reason why we became such good friends. And then also we're able to build our businesses the way we did.
Yeah. Are your families close?
At the time, when I lived next to him with my ex-wife, yeah, we would see each other almost daily, and some of our kids are the same age, which was great. But yeah, I mean, his wife and me and him and his kids, we talk regularly, and I see Dan often. His office is 2 minutes from my house, and his house
Yeah.
is 4 minutes from my house. So
So you said you have three kids?
3 kids, 16,
Three.
14, and 8.
Yeah, so you're getting close to the college age. So
Yeah.
I know something that you wanted to touch on is being a businessman and having children, um, and what that looks like from your perspective.
So being a father is my single greatest joy in the world, and I know that you share that with me. Um,
Depending on the day, yeah.
you can't even find them in the 40 acres you have. You probably barely
Yeah,
see them.
that's
Uh,
true.
but I genuinely fallen head over heels with being a father. And the older I get, the more I really just cherish that role.
Has that always been the case for you? Like early on, was it more about survival or were you always feeling that way towards your kids?
I mean, I was always mush for the kids, but
Yeah,
the point of survival was, I got married when I had just turned 20, and I had my first son at 23. Um, you know, I didn't have a lot going for me at the time, so it was all struggle trying to build myself um, at a time where the economy had just crashed and I had a newborn baby. So it was hard, and I missed a lot of the early things with my son and my daughter, who was born 18 months later, because of how hard I was just trying to establish myself. Whereas with, now in their teenage years, I'm readily available emotionally, physically, in every aspect that you need me to be. And my youngest, Momo, he gets, I kind of overcompensate with him
yeah.
on the things that I miss with my older kids. And yeah, it makes me sad that I couldn't have been there for them. But at the same time, you know, my son in 2 years will be in college and I'll be 42 years old. And that's pretty damn cool too, right? So there's pros and cons to
Yeah,
doing it the
it
way I did.
and I mean, I can absolutely relate to that as well, and I I think it's a personality trait. Even if you were working for somebody else, I believe, at least for myself, that when I had kids, I was young, not as young as you, but I got married when I was 25, and we had our first when I was 27, and then 30. I had started my business when I was 23. But even had I worked for somebody, I was so concerned with being a good father and being able to provide, and it stressed me out and created so much anxiety for me that I missed a lot of their initial years because I was so concerned with doing what I had to do and so stressed out that I wasn't going to fulfill the role and the need that they had in life,
Mhm.
that I was absent. Or if I was with them, I was thinking about something else. And it took a few years and our second coming around and becoming more successful to realize that being a father is extremely enjoyable and that you need to make time for that because it's not just paying for shit. It's not just so that they have new clothes or they have a lifestyle. It's about being there for them emotionally and physically. And it takes experience, just like in our careers, it takes experience, and going through those struggles and missing out on those first few lessons and opportunities to learn what it takes to actually be a good dad.
Yeah, I feel that it's a similar transition to being a good, business owner, business manager, team leader, whatever it might be. Um, Balance, right? Compassion, respect, all these character traits that if you do well in your business life and you carry them over to your personal life. Um, the thing is, I have an obsessive personality, right? And,
Same.
and we all do. I mean, I feel like in order to reach high levels of success, a lot of times that's a character trait that you possess. And when you want to build something like your business or whatever it is, I mean, you're laser focused, like you were saying about Nick. Um, and I might not have had an equal balance on the other side. Now I do, and I feel like I could do it. It took more experience and time management, uh, in priorities and things of that nature. But yeah,
What do you feel was the catalyst for that change? Was it just getting older? Was it struggling through anything? Was it your children vocalizing that they felt you could be a better father? What, because saying, "Hey, I'm gonna be a good dad," and then actually doing it, or saying, "Hey, I'm gonna prioritize," and then actually doing it, are 2 completely different things.
I feel like when you truly have that moment where you kind of wake up and say, you know what? this is the one thing I can never do again. I can never shrink my son to raise him again. And I had that aha kind of experience a few years ago. And I said, you know what? I'm never, and I was really good. Like I used to chaperone every field trip, even when they were kids. I mean, I've flown back from a vacation in the Bahamas because my son had an unexpected baseball practice and I didn't want to miss a practice. So
Yeah.
I was always like good, but
I mean, let's not mention that you were on vacation in the Bahamas without your kids in the first place, but carry on.
oh, I should have figured you'd say that. But yeah, no, like it just, it made me sad. And I thought, I was like, my son is 6'1", size 14 shoe. I can't remember the last time I carried him. Made me want to cry. And I said, I'm not going to miss moments anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to truly try. And what I mean by that is like, I have two telephones. There's a work phone and there's a personal phone. And I did that about 3 years ago, and after 5, 6 o'clock, uh, I'm typically not looking at that phone. And the years prior to that, I mean, I'm a slave to an email. You know what it's like to get an email? You do. Friday at 7 or 8 p.m. from a client. And it's really an unfair email to be sending. And it just ropes you into a whole weekend of not feeling good. And it's stripped you of enjoyment and moments with your children. So I find that I can't expect clients, all of the clients, to be above that. And I'm not saying they're doing it from a place of, malicious intent. They might not realize that it could really affect you because when you're passionate about something, it affects you.
Yeah.
So I put it to the side. There's a handful of people that know how to reach me on my other phone, in addition to my wife and kids. And if they need me, they can get me there. And if there's ever an emergency, it always gets escalated to me. And
Which
it's
phone do
pretty.
I have? Which phone am I texting?
I think you might
Because
have both. You've been texting the work phone, but it's work hours.
oh, I gotta make sure I have the personal phone.
Yes, sir.
um, I also think that it takes confidence in yourself and in your business to allow those emails and those texts to go. Not even just from an out of sight, out of mind perspective, but to see them and be like, you know what? I'll deal with this later because I would have the same thing, and I would tell myself I'm not gonna answer those emails, and they would eat me up all weekend, and it was almost better just to answer them. So then I would justify it by answering them by saying, now my whole weekend won't be ruined. But I'm at the point now that I know what I'm doing is the best that I can do, and I know that I have priorities and obligations that are more important to work. And if I can't get back to a customer, even if it's one of those type of emails, I'm not going to allow it to consume me for the entirety of the weekend or the night. And for me, the realization was obviously I got sick working too much and just burnt myself out, but also I realized that my wife would ask me to do something for her or for the kids, and I would be like, "Absolutely not. I have to, like, finish this job, or I have inspections, or I promised the customers I'd be in at this point," and I would tell her no. But then if my customers called and asked me to do something at the same time, it wouldn't even be a question. I would leave my family and go do it, and I realized at the end of the day, if I really need something, my family's by my side, not my customers. So I realized obviously you need your customers to pay the bills. Like you said, life costs money, but there's more important shit in life than dropping everything at every hour to fulfill the needs and wants of your customers.
Yeah, I mean, two interesting points you just touched on is the emotional aspect of being a business owner, right? So my older brother taught me this. He said, you never respond to an email if it makes your heart move in a way that you're not going to respond the way you typically would. Wait, be patient, let the time pass. And it's true. It's because true strength is the ability to control your emotions in moments when it's hard, right? We can all say we're patient until a guy beeps at us and we're giving him the fingers. Really, are we
Yeah.
patient? Because that's when you're supposed to be patient, right? So that's a very important aspect of things, just having that emotional, regulation of yourself, to just keep you kind of like, they call me the human Xanax. I try to always just like kind of stay level. Um, yeah, that was an interesting point. And the other point is, on a Sunday, sometimes, I'd be pulling away from the kids to do stuff. This is years ago. And then I'd be like, you know what? For work, you know, if someone told me that there's $5,000 in a briefcase sitting out in wherever you live in New Jersey, an hour and a half away from me, I'd probably drive there and leave all my kids at that time. And then I realized at one point, I was like, you know what? That's not more valuable. Like I literally sit down and I come up with these things, which is kind of weird of me, but that's just, I need to have examples that I can compare. And then I said, hey, Mike, is $5,000 more important than an afternoon with your kids that you'll never ever get back? Whereas
Yeah.
maybe you can work hard to make that $5,000. And I just started to hold myself accountable at a different level than I ever have before, and that helps you with your work-life balance.
Yeah, you definitely have to reshift your priorities and just have a different perspective on things. And it is, at the end of the day, it is really important. And we do have our kids and our family for such a limited amount of time. And what they really want more than anything is our attention and our time. And a lot of times that's the hardest thing
Mhm.
to give them, as a parent and as a business owner. Do you involve them with any aspects of the business?
I love to bring them to work. The
Yeah,
oldest, the oldest one is, the cool teenagers. He's not there yet, but I asked him what he wants to do, and he says, "I think I want to get into the construction industry," which I love. The
yeah,
youngest one, Momo, I have the most control over, I guess you could say at this point. So I'll drag him, like the house with the slide. He went up and down that thing 50 times. He was enamored by it, right? So, but he's very particular. He won't go to a job site unless it's only me and him alone. He doesn't feel comfortable around other people, he said.
really,
He wants to ask questions and sit and talk, and which I appreciate and respect.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, my biggest dream is that they find passion in what we do and want to do it themselves one day. Now, they could do anything and I would be happy. I mean, I really am one of those guys, like, I would support them in any aspect of their life that they chose, but it would be pretty awesome for them to kind of join in this momentum.
yeah. I'm thinking of passing on the business at some. Not me. I'm just thinking of you saying that and passing on your business. What does ECS stand for?
Well, it started out, the company was Elayan, which is my last name,
Yeah,
Construction Services. And then when we jumped into Instagram, what, 10 years ago or so, that's a long name.
yeah.
So ECS Homes. And then it kind of just clicked.
Yeah, I remember I used to sing to you, "You can't hide those lion
Very nice.
eyes."
Yeah.
Um, all right, so how about I have some other things I wanna dig into, but, I know you as Mike. I've always known you as Mike, and you're logged on here with your actual name. Is that an intentional shift, a conscientious shift? Is that just your account that this is under?
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I put Mike Elayan, but even on social media, as of recent, my real name is Mahmoud,
Yeah,
pronounced by most people as Mahmoud. Um, and I felt like that was a more marketable name for a long time. And again, through my growth and evolution, this is who I am. This is what
yeah.
my parents call me. This is what everyone who loves me calls me. I like my name. I'm named after my grandfather, so you can call me Mike, but my real name is Mahmoud, and that's
That's
a
cool, man.
yeah.
Honestly, like I know I love hearing that, and the growth there, and I think that we're often trying to protect our image in a certain way, especially with business, and at the end of the day, you want people to be hiring you for you, and, it looks like you have to pay your electric bill. Oh, there you go, your lights are going on and off. Um, but it's cool to be able to, "Hey, this is my name, this is how who I am," and, just own that, so congrats, that's
Thanks,
sweet.
buddy. You know what it is? If they don't want to hire me because they don't like my name, then I don't want to work for them. But
Exactly,
it took me
but
a while to get to that point.
for sure,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's a
yeah.
big thing, and that's a real thing, and it obviously proves growth there. So, I've known you for a long time now. You've been through economic downturn, we've been through COVID, and I feel that the last 3 years have just been change after change after change, and just looking to adapt to the construction market and sector. Where do you see your sector of the custom home market headed?
So this is a question that I feel has two different paths. One is we're seeing more luxury homes at a high caliber than ever before. New Jersey, in our market specifically, the type of houses we built, we weren't doing a lot of like five, six, seven, eight, $10 million houses. A lot of our new projects are in that ballpark. Before it was a lot of like $2 to $4 million. So one aspect is kind of by surprise, it caught me, is skyrocketing where people are building everything they can dream of. And then we have the other, side of our business where it just, very hardworking. Not to say that the people who aren't building $10 million houses aren't working
Yeah.
hard, but also very hardworking folks that want to build a beautiful 4,500 square foot house with a lot of nice detailing. And we're doing those types of projects too. And we love that. I mean, I want to stay connected. My entire team, we came from literally nothing, right? Every one of us really had to work hard to get to where we are today, and we connect with any person that's doing the same, that's working hard to accomplish and build their dreams, so to give their kids a great yard to play in, and beautiful bedrooms and congregational areas in the house. So that's something that we love. And I don't say that I would, you know enjoy building the $10 million houses more than the $2 million houses. I feel like every single project that we do has its own unique touches, and we find all of them enjoyable. The one thing I don't want to do, and I think you're the same way, I never want to do a cookie cutter house because it's a
Yeah.
quick payday. It's not what I'm
Yep.
interested in.
No, there's not much gratifying about that. So the $10 million houses, those are the people whose parents passed the company off to them,
No,
right?
believe it or not, I don't have one customer where that's the case. All
Yeah,
these
because they
guys
all
are
know you said that.
self-made.
Because they all know you
No, no,
said
but
that.
it's the truth. I'm telling you, my clients, I'm telling you, and it's not, I will take your father's money and your grandfather's money. It doesn't matter to me. But our clients that are building these homes are and they're young,
Is it a
incredible businessmen.
spillover from New York City that's like, "Hey, we'd have to spend this much in New York, and we can get into the suburbs and get more for our money," or what do you think is changing? Because a lot of other areas in the country, those houses are far more prevalent. And in New Jersey, I mean, even if you come south, like the Philadelphia market in the suburbs on the Jersey side of Philadelphia, completely different than you look at Boston or you go to the main line in Philly, which is much different. It's just not commonplace for people to be building a ton of $10 million homes around here.
Yeah.
There's a handful, but it's not as prevalent, and you get up towards where you are, like you said, in Alpine, and it's happening more and more. Why do you think?
I feel like uh, there's a couple different reasons. There are people that do come from the city. Those aren't the clients that I'm currently servicing with those projects. Uh, but they just outgrew their two-bedroom apartment and they need a yard because their kids are now 7 and 8 years old and older. And we build those houses for them, typically in Tenafly, Demorest, Cresthill area. Right, that's usually their transition because they still work in New York and that's a quick commute, or Montclair, which is another beautiful town. Then you have other people that just do incredible in business. They start small businesses, they grow, they live in a town, they love it, they do better in 3 years than they did before, and they say, you know what, my kids are older, I need a bigger house. This is what I want. I have the ability to do it, and I want to do it. And they just kind of just continue to grow. Some of our clients right now live in 3,000 square foot houses that are building 17,000 square foot houses, and their kids are older, but that's what they want. So we do
Have
it.
have you seen I know that a lot of people who are building to this caliber aren't necessarily looking to finance money to pay for these builds, but have you seen any sort of slowdown, or economic downturn in that luxury market due to interest rates or just the cost of building?
No matter how much money you have, every single client of ours leverages bank money.
Yeah.
It's cheaper. So no one uses all cash to do it just because it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, they're not looking to on a bank approval to say, "Yeah, this house is gonna appraise for X amount," when they're building a once in a lifetime house that there's no comps really
Correct.
to go up against.
If there's a $2 million downfall, they'll go ahead and infill that with cash. So they
Yeah.
have the luxury of doing that, of course. But to whatever extent they can get some bank money, they do. How has it affected our business and more generally the market? Um, I think that in some cases, we probably see projects slowing down. Like I had a few projects that were supposed to start that haven't, and I think it has to do with financing. Anytime that you're tight, meaning a customer is at the top of their budget, if they could really maximum afford a $2 million house before these interest spikes, and now a $2 million house with 7% interest rates puts them over budget. Those are the people that are kind of like hesitating, right? And
Mhm.
the reality is they shouldn't go through with it until they're comfortable, because the last thing you want to do is go into a house construction, project very lean, not have any reserves. You're gonna find problems. I mean, it's a 100% guarantee. It doesn't matter what kind of, who you are, what you're doing. I built my own house. You hit high water tables. Things happen. So definitely should have a reserve. So those projects are going a little bit slower. I have seen a spike in major renovations, right? Like $1 million plus
Mhm.
renovations, where they said, you know what, we have good ceiling height. We can't find a good house on the market in any price range. We love this area. Instead of spending $4 million on a new house, let's spend $1 million, make our house our dream house. So there's
So
more of those.
they're moving out and then doing a full renovation?
We will never, ever service a house where a customer lives. Again, even though I said that 3 or 4 years ago on the podcast, and I've done a bunch since, but I can guarantee you now that will never happen again.
It's so tough. I mean, that's my bread and butter, but, like, obviously, it's not full renovations, um, but it's a completely different beast.
Yeah, I just no, I'm not. We're not geared towards it.
Yeah.
It's it's too, But the problem is this: it could be an
There's a lot
incredible.
of problems.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it could be an incredible project. But if you're building multiple houses, right, and you are, essentially just, the electrician's working, followed by the AV guy, there's sequence, there's issues there, but tolerable. This one job where a client lives there, he shows up or she shows up. There's a nail in my driveway. Now you're driving 30 minutes to go get that nail because the cold water, or the hot water is not working. The pilot went off while they were working. It's so critical that someone be planted there from morning to night every single day, like yourself, in order to make sure they have a pleasant experience. So you can't really, something has to take a hit. It's either your main projects or their project. So I learned that the hard way. You don't take those projects on. If that's not what you're not going to give it 100%, or if you can't, it's not worth taking.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if people are looking to price those jobs out, you're going to be outpricing them with just the management fee of state, because if you have a good guy or girl that makes you X amount of money running 2 new builds and you're gonna pull them full time to be at a job, you still have to be charging that management fee, and now you're dumping all of that management fee on one project, and you're probably outpricing yourself out of that project.
Correct.
Um, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing? Obviously, things are a lot different today than they were last year, than they were 3 years ago. What are the biggest challenges that you feel you're facing doing what you're doing in the market that you're in?
This is, you don't want to sound arrogant, and I'm not, because I'm not. But I feel like, I don't have on my radar like one substantial challenge anymore, other than lead times on materials.
Yeah.
I feel like we really are implementing just our core structure, our efficiency, the best we can with what we have to work with in this current market. In a perfect world, the subcontractors would be a little bit more readily available and more responsive, even though our crew really is exceptional. So it's not fair to say. But before COVID, things did move quicker.
Yeah.
They moved a little bit simpler. But from where we are and where we stand, I think we're over the hump and we're pretty comfortable. It'd be great to go back to pre-COVID days if that happens, but we understand. Did I lose you?
Nah, I can hear you.
Oh, I lost your pretty face. I got nervous.
Uh-oh.
All right. Well, anyways, we understand lead times. We understand, when things need to be ordered by, which that was the biggest learning curve. When this all hit,
Yeah.
no one really knew. So projects that should have been 14, 15, 16 months took 18, 19 months, 20 months or more. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we didn't have any type of prior experience or, guidance going into this.
Nobody did, but that's one of the perks and benefits of remaining lean in business, that it's not as if you have the overhead of a 20-person team and you can't close jobs out. So now you're taking on more jobs and you have more balls in the air. You're remaining lean. You don't need a ton of work to keep you busy, and you're able to sustain these jobs that you have that maybe are moving slower. So I would say that you're in a good spot remaining lean throughout all of this, that you don't have the burden of a massive overhead, and these jobs that are potentially dragging out due to unforeseen conditions, or things out of your control, are not going to weigh as heavily on your bottom line as a larger contractor.
And that's always been my goal, is kind of calculated risk. Sustainable growth coupled with calculated risk. But I'm not opposed to some growth, even though, I mean, where we are is where a lot of people aspire to be, and where I aspire to be. But once I feel like we're super comfortable here, the chances are we're going to kind of regroup and say, "Oh, let's kind of talk about the next phase." But for where we are right now, we're super content. Um, and touching on the timelines that you were just talking about, we didn't really talk about much. You work mostly with designers on your projects, or
Yeah, I mean, in some aspect, we're involving design, whether it's architect, interior designers. We're not doing projects that are not fully designed in some capacity.
so that's a problem for us, right? And that's an area where you asked me challenges, and I actually, that's what I should have answered with. That is probably the biggest challenge we still face.
Let's rewind. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing today, Mike?
Well, Tyler, let me tell you. So, um, when a client decides to take on the position of designer, and a lot of times it's maybe trying to just kind of keep an eye on the global budget, which I respect. uh, it's underestimated the amount of money, the amount of work that has to go into this, and how much micro detail needs to be conveyed to the team at an early stage. um, and we have a handful of those where we're working through, and we'll do everything we can to supplement. They are more challenging, definitely. It's not as efficient, they take
Yeah,
longer. um, but that's a hard conversation to have with the clients. It's hard to say, hey, you're paying us to manage a project, but it's going slow because the things are being done kind of in a very convoluted fashion. It's not what we're accustomed to. So we try to be as diplomatic as possible, but still also keep things moving, as fast as we can. But if it was in, my opinion, a perfect world is the architect, the designer, and the builder in the beginning stages are signed on. The job is front loaded, where we have a spec book. Maybe you don't need to pick paint colors,
yeah,
but give me everything. If your stairs are floating, I don't want to be engineering those stairs 6 months after we start construction and I'm ready to install them. That's too late for you to give us an inspiration photo showing me that suspended stair. You need
yeah,
to really give this to the architect and the firms early on, so that they know, um, where am I setting my in wall faucet valves in the powder, my custom vanities, like all these little things that and I know and Nick knows, and a lot of our colleagues here know, but clients don't necessarily realize how much goes into this. And we used to talk a lot about education. Very important to educate. It's also very time consuming,
yeah.
right? I feel like if I wanted to answer, or if I had the time to answer every single question that came in, uh, that's all I'd be doing all day and night. So you have to be able to hire professionals that can guide you, and that is itself an educational process, right?
I mean,
Uh,
that's even with respect to the designer, having them on board or onboarding them from the beginning of a job. A lot of times you have a customer that, oh, I'm going to handle this, or I enjoy. But when you start loading them with the amount of questions that you need from even a simple renovation, and then that, not even considering a full complex house build, that's a full-time job to get those answers, and to get those answers efficiently. And that's where somebody who that's all they do comes in to benefit them and is worth the cost, because now you're not looking to pull those answers from somebody else They have a point of contact to get all of those answers. You can be involved with that as much as you want, but then somebody else is responsible for ensuring that everything is selected and decided within reason prior to starting that project.
Yeah. You know Mike A. I think you've met him a few times. So
Yeah.
Mike A. is extremely technical, and while him and I could do things on the fly very easily, but he wants to make sure that the clients are going to get exactly what they want. So when a designer is hired, let's just say they sent. This happens sometimes where they don't get a full design package. The client just hires them to do some basics. They'll send us some pictures with some dimensions, and this happened today. And he's like, Mike, I really don't know what I'm doing with this fireplace. Like, we're going to the client, we're trying to get this information, and he's like, look, I could do it. It's not a problem. But I want to make sure when you show up, it's exactly what you're envisioning. But if you say, hey, guys, just do it, Mike and I, we can handle it. So getting designers to kind of just come halfway to put pretty images together for you and say, this goes, that doesn't really help
No,
us.
not at all.
It hurts us because the client, and it hurts the client because they paid for something they think is essentially a blueprint to design their house, and then we're going to be like, where's all the information?
There's no information.
There's
They're like
60 pages there, but yeah, it doesn't tell us anything.
they're conceptuals, and at
Yeah.
that point it's like, why why is there a designer on board at this point? Are you looking just to get paid for an hourly? This is conceptual. I cannot build from this.
Yeah.
And I that comes down to education and obviously a conversation to be had with said designer, but I've ran into that before, and it actually happened in a situation where I was contracted to do the work and it was a built-in, and then they brought in a designer when I already started the design process, and my design process is much different than what a designer is going to do because I'm looking at it from a fabrication standpoint and an installer standpoint and using conceptuals and inspiration to get there. And a designer comes in, they hire a designer. Oh, this is what we actually want to build. And I'm like, that's great. But now you have this price on top of what your budget was already, and this does nothing for me because I still need to do all of the work to figure out how to build this in a way that like you actually just cost yourself 2500 bucks in design that now you can't put towards your built-in, where you could have just found a picture online and said essentially it's the same thing, somebody just sketched it on a paper, but there's no useful
Easier.
information for me there.
Yeah. It's
And they
easier
don't
for
know.
me to give me a photo than it is to give me a halfway done design, because the
Yeah.
photo, it leaves it loose for interpretation. Okay, you want four cubbies. This is the spacing. We draw it on the wall. It's done. So
Yeah, no, it's tough, and that comes down to education. I think that a lot of designers are looking to get paid and get their foot in the door, and not there's a lack of knowledge and on their behalf. And it's not all designers, but they should be selling more of a professional, fully comprehensive, encapsulating service rather than just like, hey, here's an elevation that's for inspiration.
and I feel like the reason that might happen uh, is everyone is afraid to say what things really cost.
Yeah,
And a design, and I understand from a business perspective, because we touched on this on the construction side. If a designer gives a $15,000 conceptual design fee, a client's looking at it like, all right, I could stomach that. But if they say, hey, this is 80,000 or $100,000 full design fee to do everything, the chances are they're going to just kind of look right past them, and they figure that they can get their foot in the door. But what happens is they get that conceptual package, then they price their project and they realize that, hey, you're up 15% over what I really want to spend. They're not going to go spend an extra $60,000 to
yeah.
complete the design. Oh, we'll just figure it out in the field. And I see it happen often, and it's just not the right way. But
But there is a potential for that $80,000 design package to save that much money within the course of the entire build if it's a fully comprehensive, detailed design package. And I think that that's where a good designer can really bring their value to the table where okay this is actually making my life easier. I can send this to subs the price. I can price this. I can go through this with a fine tooth comb and detail, and at least I can have specific questions off of this, but it's not starting at ground zero where I'm just looking at it as like, hey, this is conceptual. I have no information here. Where do I even start my list of questions?
Uh-huh.
So it comes down to bringing value with that number. If you're just again, like you said, if you're bringing a $15,000 conceptual design package, that's going to end up costing you more than the 80,000 when all said and done, because it's going to be revisions and redos, and no, this isn't how we wanted it, and your contractors and subs getting frustrated. So it a good designer definitely is worth their weight in gold.
100%.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is you're thinking about becoming a podcaster, huh?
Yeah, so Dan and I have been talking about this for a while. A unique perspective from an architect and a builder to kind of talk about not just your standard modern designs, design trends, all that good stuff, implementation, synergy, pricing, prospects, how to identify houses, plots, etc., and then just also bring on some interesting individuals that we can feature to talk about their rises in the construction and design industry as well.
So how serious are you guys about this? Have you started
You can't
branding and
just
all that stuff?
you don't see my headphones?
I mean, they're pretty serious. The microphone is a slight issue. You could be like freestyling with that
Yeah.
thing.
Boom, boom. So yeah, no, we're serious. I mean, we're almost ready to launch it. Probably sometime next month. I need my coffee. So fasting, like my
That's
energy
true.
level. My energy levels are usually through the roof. I'm like subdued right now. I'm kind of like super.
It's
Yeah,
nice. You and me, we're both
yeah,
just relaxed these days.
yeah. Yeah, you weren't like
Um,
this before.
so you guys have a name and branding, or are you just winging it? What's going on?
Yeah, I was going to call it the Mike Show, but he insisted that that wasn't catchy enough. So
MIC?
no, no, that's actually pretty good. Hey, you're good. It's called Rebar.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're
Have you
yeah,
guys started recording?
no, that's in May.
So you'll
Yeah,
start at that point and you'll
and
launch pretty much immediately.
correct. Yeah,
Cool. You
so
guys
it
do all
should
the
be fun.
branding and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's Dansfield.
Yeah.
I'm just a
Uh,
talent. I just show up.
exactly. Just some you have the face for radio. I think
Yeah.
that's what they say. Do you guys have guests lined up so far?
No, I have a guest list of people that I reached out to. I just need to iron out dates,
It's
but
weird. I guess
it's
my email got lost. Let's
no, no.
see.
This is it right now. You're being
Oh.
interviewed. Yeah,
Oh, okay. You were waiting to do it in person.
yeah,
That's exciting.
yeah. It should be fun.
What are you guys gonna release once a week?
That's what I'm thinking. Either once a week or once every 2 weeks in the beginning.
Yeah.
Just kind of see how it goes. It has to flow. Listen, I enjoy this industry more than second thing I enjoy the most in life after my family, right? It's truly like what I bleed and breathe, and Mike is the same way, Dan is the same way, my brother, all of us. um, and it's not just solely about education, although that's a big part of this. We genuinely have fun talking shop, and if
Yeah.
anyone can benefit from the insight that we've gotten from all the mistakes we've made along the way, then that's a fantastic thing.
Have you guys given any thought to offsetting costs of production and all that stuff yet or not? Yeah.
Yeah, we already got some sponsors.
Cool.
Yeah, NS Builders.
Yeah, he's big time. I would definitely go to him, milk him for all that he's
Yeah.
worth.
uh, do you see that
Um,
guy's guns? Oh my god.
dude, I was just with him all last week. He was good until we walked by this one guy on the Anderson production line who was real cut up, like some young kid. He was big too, like taller than me, and he was just busting through the seams of his shirt, and all of a sudden Nick got real quiet and he wasn't as confident. He wasn't flexing the guns around him
I
as
feel like
much.
we all feel great until we see Kilo in construction.
Exactly. That's what my little brother looks like.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
No, yeah, we just saw him last week. It's
Yeah,
good
I
to see
saw
him and Doug.
there's sounds like the Patterson Custom Home said there's something big cooking in the background. Top secret works.
Yeah,
I love it.
apparently.
I love it.
That's who you gotta get to. That's the sponsor. That's what's
Yeah,
coming to sponsor.
I love it.
Cool. Well, you're gonna have to give us the information once that's up and running.
Definitely.
And then obviously I'll be your normal rotation for guests.
Absolutely.
Just once a month maybe.
No
I
Titanic song this time. I'm a little
see,
disappointed.
I
I
don't
thought.
have last time the podcast got pulled because of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we don't have the
Cop.
licensing for the song, and somehow it got
Oh,
reported because it was
no
in
way.
there.
Also, it's
Nah,
gone. The podcast is down, or you just took that part out?
whatever clips we had posted with that, it got pulled.
That was the best clip.
I know that honestly, dude, that was the peak of my podcast career. And since then it's just been on this consistent downward plane. I can't outdo that. Um yeah, I forget what Nick had. Nick had the marathon yesterday, and I knew he wasn't gonna be here for this. I think his wife, like he had the marathon and then his wife went some oh, no, you know what? His wife was supposed to leave the country for a wedding, and then I think he ended up going too.
Oh, nice. Good for
So
him.
I knew he wasn't gonna be here, but if I told you that Nick wasn't coming on, there's no way you would have showed up just
That's
for
not
me.
true. Are you
So
kidding me?
I just kept it a secret.
That's not true.
Um, cool, Mike. Well, it was good to talk to you. I at some point want to catch up. I've just been busy. Life's been busy, and
I hear you.
crazy. Where are you now? Are you still in the same area?
Same town I was in before. Yep.
Cool. So I
Yeah.
can drive by you and pop in and say hi.
Yep. Your favorite restaurant's not there anymore,
Nah,
but
it's closed.
it's
It's
okay.
closed.
I'll take you
Wasn't
somewhere a little nicer than that.
all right. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. I guess where for people who are looking to find you, if you have any information on podcast, social, website, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. ECS Homes on Instagram. Mikey Builds NJ on TikTok. Because the young kids, they're into TikTok these days.
You're on
Oh,
TikTok?
yeah. You better
What is
believe
it?
it.
What is it? I'm not on
Mikey
TikTok, but I want to hear this name again.
Mikey Builds NJ.
Builds with a Z?
No, with an S.
That's some North Jersey shit. That's amazing.
And then
Um,
soon to be co-host of the Rebar podcast.
yeah, man. And you'll have a website and for all that stuff?
Oh yeah, I got some
Sweet.
other really big stuff cooking, but I just can't reveal it yet. But
Do
soon,
you?
oh yeah, baby,
Really? The modeling career's taking off?
you better believe it.
That's sick.
Calvin Klein called. They're
More
interested.
than just feet now,
Oh
right?
yeah.
That's amazing. I
Yeah,
can't wait to hear. You
yeah.
gotta invite me to all the release
Oh, you
parties.
better believe it, pal.
You know I'll be standing in the corner not talking to anyone.
With your alpaca.
Yeah, sheep. All right, man. Well,
Thank you.
thanks for your
It was a
I
pleasure.
appreciate it. So to get out of here, all you have to do, I think, is hit end broadcast, and then I should be able to log out on my end. And if anything has not uploaded completely, I can send you a link to finish uploading. But typically, if you hit, or sorry, not end broadcast, like what are the buttons on your screen?
Leave
Leave
studio.
meeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
leave studio. Hit that, and it should tell me how much you're uploaded. But if we have any issues, I can send you a link.
You got it, buddy. I'll see you, pal.
All right, man. Thank you.
Take care. Of course. Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye-bye.